over 9 years since I was first severely harmed by a cold turkey attempt off of Effexa. Now 42 months since my last dosage. Reinstating the drug and doing a long taper was the worst thing I could have done, but it is what it is. I have to, face the reality. I can't turn back time. I often wonder to myself, why I'm still, trucking along, through this pain and suffering, invisible suffering. But, I say to myself, there's a higher purpose for this. And, what I'm doing is God's work, and, good things will come from it. I will continue to heal, but it's going to be a slow process, and time will tell. Deep down, I think psychiatry, has a lot to answer for, and the damage and harm that it causes, it can't be denied. It can't be swept under the carpet. The chemical imbalance theory, which was pushed by big pharma propaganda, has been debunked, and there's no, biochemical testing, blood tests, brain scans that can detect a chemical imbalance. It's all a fallacy. And this is what a big chunk of psychiatry is based on. Imagine spending years of your life in training, studying, and all you have at your disposal are pills to prescribe that aren't trialed past 8 to 12 weeks, that aren't, trialed to be, successful in the long term. There's no backing for long-term use of these drugs, and that's all you have. You're not curing anyone. I think intuitively and, deep down, a lot of psychiatrists know, what they're doing is unethical and immorally wrong. But they have, bills to pay. They have, mortgages to pay off, kids to feed, student loans to pay off. So the prescriptions keep on coming, and so does the corruption. I also think a lot of psychiatrists, they like the big pharma benefits a lot as well. Free food, being flown about, representing the pharmaceutical companies. It's a very lucrative job. You only have to go through Twitter or X to, spot a number of these plethora of these ignorant, white-coated shrinks that, don't want to admit to the harm, and they protect their assets at all costs. If karma hasn't hit these guys already, when it does, it's not going to be pretty, so all I can do is be on the right side of history, and share my story, and that's all I can do. Engaging with these people, it's a waste of time ultimately, and a lot of you guys just focus on yourself and your healing, and that's all we can do. In the harm community, we use the word withdrawal a lot. Withdrawal. Withdrawal is better than discontinuation syndrome. But ultimately, withdrawal is a term used to withdraw one from a psychological or physical substance such as heroin, cocaine, caffeine, and generally after 48 hours, 72 hours tops, it's over. And what's left of that, especially when it comes to psychotropic drugs, SSRIs, SNRIs, benzodiazepines, is iatrogenesis, is neurological damage. I think it's such a misnomer, for the severely harmed people to call this, withdrawal. Imagine going up to someone who has brain cancer, who's getting chemotherapy, and saying, "How's your headache?" And for myself, I've been affected for 9 years of my life. This isn't withdrawal. This is a fucking, this is a neurological injury. This is a brain injury. And I think it's about time we start calling it for what it is and not hiding from it. Yeah, ultimately, guys, in terms of negatives, positives, I'll go over that, but the negatives are from neurotoxicity, toxic encephalopathy, and I think a lot of psychiatrists are, who are trying to raise awareness, which is great, but Joseph Whitduring, Mark Horowitz, Joanna Moncrief, they don't speak a lot about neurotoxicity and its effects, prolonged effect on the brain over time. There's not much talk about it. Dr. Stuart Shipko talks a lot about it. Dr. Peter Brigham, but the others don't, and I think we should be speaking about it more. So, currently, for myself, just having a lot of burning, brain pain, pain in the ears, memory loss, eye blurriness from the toxicity. I feel like I'm sort of, constantly in a state of concussion, cognitive dissonance, neurological dysregulation, tardive dysphoria. I'm having problems sleeping. There's definitely time distortion, time confusion, where it just doesn't feel like I'm living. I'm just stuck, and the world is surpassing me, and I'm not going anywhere. I just feel stuck, and that's a TBI. It's part of TBI. So yeah, ultimately, just I'm concerned about my noggin. That's my main concern. Neurotoxicity. So it is what it is. Time will tell if healing continues to happen. So it's been such a long journey for myself. I mean, 9 years I've been living with a harmed brain, with a nervous system, and I played games of competitive cricket with drug-induced psychosis. My eyes were bloodshot. I've pushed myself so hard. I've travelled over to Melbourne in Australia to party with my best friends, and not long after I cold turkeyed off of Effexa, so I was neurologically damaged, and they helped me a lot, but I struggled so much. People must have thought I was a junkie or something. I was so lost, and the breaking point come one day over in Melbourne when I went to Starbucks. I went to the toilet, and my wallet fell in my pocket, my coins scattered everywhere, and I just started crying in despair because I just couldn't keep up with my mates, and I knew I was badly harmed. Fast forward a reinstatement. I travelled over to Southeast Asia for 2 months by myself, and I went to places that very few tourists will go. That's just the nature of myself. And akathisia was hitting me hard back then, and I picked up smoking. I smoked a pack a day, and I walked about 20,000 steps a day just to try and contain the akathisia, which was bubbling at the surface back then. And I've given speeches at weddings in front of hundreds, over 100 people live. I've pushed myself to do that with the neurological injury. From mid 2021 to late 2024, I had to move over 29 times, in the global pandemic. While I was coming off of Effexa, I had to fight to get in the rental property. I've had to push myself so far beyond the realm of someone's imagination. It's not funny, and I don't think these videos do it justice. The in-depth, the rawness, the suffering that I've been through. These videos just show a small percentage of that. But I pushed myself so hard, and I will make a video about the 29 moves with my brother later on, and that was a hell of a time, man. Not sure how I'm still here. But to the positives, I always finish off with the positives, and I'll say to myself, I've got a lot of anger and a lot of curiosity in my body, which is pushing me forward. And I've got memories and images that are coming to the surface that have been suppressed for many years, and I'm starting to I know that's a sign of neuroplasticity and healing, so I remain positive for that. And the anger, that's an emotion, so I keep going. I've come so far, I can't give up, and it's been a 9-year journey, so I've got to keep going. And there's so many things I want to do in my life, so many things I want to achieve, and I can't give up. I've got to keep going. So it's the way it is. So I keep going, guys, day by day. And if you've been badly harmed by a benzo or SSRI, SNRI, and you feel like giving up, please just take things day by day, and don't give up. If I can still be here sharing my story after what I've gone through, you're going to make it. So stay strong. Love you guys, and see you in the next video. Cheers.